In the mid-80s, a-ha became popular in the global music industry with their synth-pop anthem, Take On Me. That song, with its instantly recognizable keyboard riff and unique pencil-sketch animated music video, topped charts in multiple countries. It also went ahead to become one of the most iconic singles of the decade. The Norwegian trio, made up of Morten Harket, Magne Furuholmen, and Pol Wakhtar, continued that success with hits like The Sun Always Shines on TV and Hunting High and Low, but when die-hard fans least expected it, something strange happened. After a few years, their popularity in the United States started to fade. In the early 90s, grunge and alternative rock had taken over, and a-ha's synth-pop music style didn't fit the new mood or vibe of American radio. Now, the band is mostly remembered for Take On Me.
Come on, feel the noise! Come on, feel the noise! Girls, run!
Quiet Riot. Quiet Riot was the band that accidentally kicked open the door for heavy metal in the early 80s. In 1983, their album Metal Health shot to #1 in the US, making history as the first metal record to ever do that. They had huge hits like Come On Feel the Noise and the title track Metal Health, and MTV couldn't play them enough. Singer Kevin Dubrow was loud and wild, guitarist Carlos Cavazo perfected solos, and bassist Rudy Sarzo kept the energy high, but Dubrow seemed to be a problem. He couldn't stop talking trash about other bands in interviews, and it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Behind the scenes, the group started to constantly have fights, and this really affected their cooperation and consequently, their success. Then when grunge music took over in the early 90s, Quiet Riot's popularity tanked. They tried comebacks a few times, but it never hit like the old days. Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Frankie Goes to Hollywood blew up almost overnight in 1983 with their first single, Relax. The song had suggestive lyrics and a pretty wild music video, so the BBC banned it. But as you'd expect, that only made people want to hear it more. It ended up spending 5 weeks at #1 in the UK and turned the band into a huge deal worldwide. They kept the momentum going with Two Tribes, which was about Cold War fears, and The Power of Love, a big emotional ballad. For a short time, they were everywhere, on TV, in magazines, and all over the radio, but fame hit them fast and fell apart just as quickly. The band members were always having issues with each other and with their record label. Their second album, Liverpool, was released in 1986 and didn't have the same magic or thrill. By 1987, the original lineup broke up and lead singer Holly Johnson went solo. Frankie Goes to Hollywood is now remembered as one of those bands that shot to the top, caused a ton of hype, and then disappeared in just a few years. Ratt. Ratt was one of the kings of the Sunset Strip hair metal industry in the mid-80s. Their 1984 debut album, Out of the Cellar, became a hit, thanks to the hit Round and Round, which got heavy MTV rotation and made them household names among rock fans. Frontman Stephen Pearcy had that sleazy glam rock swagger, guitarist Warren DeMartini was a shredder, and the band's flashy image fit perfectly with the era. For a few years, they released gold and platinum albums after album, headlined arena tours, and lived the full rock star life. But like a lot of 80s bands, there was a lot of trouble behind the scenes. The music press didn't always take them seriously, and constant partying, clashing egos, and changes in music trends started to wear them down. By the early 90s, grunge hit, and Ratt's slick glam metal style felt out of date almost overnight. They broke up in 1992, tried a few reunions with mixed results, and became known more for lawsuits between members than for releasing hit songs. Warrant. Warrant was the talk of the music industry in 1989 after dropping their debut album Dirty Rotten Filthy Stinking Rich and the hit Heaven. But they really became infamous for their second album, Cherry Pie, 1990. That title track and its over-the-top music video became glam metal's guilty pleasure anthem. Frontman Janny Lane had a knack for catchy hooks, and the band's mix of party anthems and power ballads made them MTV regulars. They scored more hits like Sometimes She Cries and I Saw Red, and for a short time, they were one of the genre's biggest acts. The problem, though, was that grunge was right around the corner. In 1992, bands like Nirvana and Pearl Jam were the new big thing, and glam metal suddenly looked cheesy to mainstream audiences. Warrant's popularity dropped fast, and Lane later admitted he grew to hate Cherry Pie, saying it overshadowed everything else they did. The band kept touring and releasing albums with different lineups, but their peak was already over.
Can you hear me out there, Detroit? How you people doing so far? How you hanging in there?
Cinderella. Cinderella went from being a mere band from Philadelphia to a legendary glam metal band. Their sound was so different that it had more depth and bluesy soul than most of their Sunset Strip peers. Frontman Tom Kiefer's raspy voice and the band's mix of heavy riffs with almost southern rock influences set them apart. Their 1986 debut Night Songs was so good that it went triple platinum. Their follow-up, Long Cold Winter, 1988, doubled down on the blues rock vibe and produced more hits like Don't Know What You Got, Till It's Gone, which became one of the era's most famous rock ballads. But things started to go south pretty fast in the early 90s. Kiefer began to have serious vocal cord problems that required multiple surgeries, forcing them to cancel tours and go on long breaks. On top of that, grunge had arrived, and MTV wasn't playing hair metal anymore. The label was quick to drop them after their 1994 album Still Climbing failed to become a hit. They're now remembered as one of the more musically talented bands of the glam era. Dead or Alive. The Dead or Alive band was a completely different 80s story. They have more synths, more drama, and a frontman who made sure you remembered him. Led by the androgynous and flamboyant Pete Burns, the British band hit it big in 1985 with You Spin Me Round, Like a Record, a song that still pops up in commercials, movies, and memes decades later. Their sound was high-energy dance pop with some goth, and their bold look made them stand out on MTV at a time when image was everything. The single went to #1 in the UK and became a worldwide hit, solidifying their place in 80s pop culture. After that massive success, though, the band struggled to keep the same level of attention. They had more chart success in Japan than in the US or UK, and over the years, Pete Burns became more famous for his outrageous TV appearances and extreme plastic surgery than for new music. Dead or Alive kept releasing albums through the 90s and 2000s, but they never again reached the global fame of their breakout hit. A Flock of Seagulls. A Flock of Seagulls was one of those bands that seemed to perfect the exact look and sound of the early 80s new wave vibe. Formed in Liverpool and fronted by Mike Score, whose wild, swooping hairstyle became almost as famous as their music, they debuted in 1982 with I Ran, So Far Away. The song's unique synths and futuristic vibe quickly made it an MTV favorite, and the music video is pure early 80s sci-fi in the best way possible. They followed it up with Space Age Love Song and Wishing If I Had a Photograph of You, both of which did well on the charts. The band was simply on a roll, but that momentum didn't last. The band's later albums didn't have the same spark, and internal tensions, especially between Mike Score and his brother, drummer Ali Score, started to pull them apart. Over time, I Ran became a nostalgic 80s song, showing up in commercials, movies like La La Land, and video games, not the band. Berlin was part of the Los Angeles new wave vibe, with frontman Terry Nunn, whose great voice became their signature. They first gained attention with provocative songs like Sex, I'm A, in the early 80s, but their major mainstream breakthrough came in 1986 with Take My Breath Away, which was the ballad from the Top Gun soundtrack. That song hit #1 worldwide, won an Oscar, and instantly became one of the most romantic ballads of the decade. Berlin's earlier hits like No More Words and The Metro were edgier and club-friendly, but Top Gun gave them the most audience. Ironically, the massive success of Take My Breath Away caused friction within the band. Some members felt they were moving too far from their synth-driven new wave roots into a softer music style. By the late 80s, the original lineup split, with Nunn later reviving Berlin in the late 90s and keeping the name alive with new music. And Dell was the UK synth-pop duo of Mark Almond and David Ball, and they became famous in 1981 with their cover of Tainted Love. That single was basically everywhere. It was played on the radio, in clubs, and later in countless movie soundtracks. It stayed on the US Billboard Hot 100 for a record-breaking 43 weeks, even though it never hit #1 there. Soft Cell's fame seemed to happen overnight, but it ended up being short-lived. In 1984, tensions between Almond and Ball and the pressure of constant touring led to them splitting. Almond went on to have a solo career, while Soft Cell became one of those bands that defined a very specific moment in the early 80s. They reunited several times over the decades, and in 2018 they even announced what was supposed to be their final show. But today, Tainted Love is still that iconic song that gave them the worldwide fame they no longer have.